Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video, and the subject of today's video is going to be on the NFL. Specifically, I'm going to be giving my reaction to week 2 of the NFL. I'll be going through each game, briefly touching on them, talking about what I thought of the game, what I thought of each of the teams, and then to wrap it up, I'm going to specifically talk about the 5 teams that I think impressed the most this week, and the 5 teams that I think disappointed the most this week. I am gonna do this. Basically, this is the first time I've done this kind of a video. We'll see how it goes, and if I think it goes well, if you guys think it goes well, then maybe I'll do them on a more regular basis. But let's get into it. Number one, Thursday night football last week was Buccaneers versus Panthers, and the Bucks won 20 to 14. This I think was actually in contention for one of the worst games of the week. Cam played pretty bad. It wasn't really an exciting game, despite the score being close. I didn't find it exciting. It almost felt like a game where two teams that really didn't want to win had to face off, and somebody had to win, and that's what the reason why the Buccaneers won. I am very surprised that the Panthers lost this. I expected them to be better than this, and I expected the Buccaneers to be a lot worse than the Panthers. So I was surprised by this outcome, but overall, just a flat performance, and Cam Newton looked pretty bad, and that's my biggest takeaway. Cowboys Redskins 31-21. Cowboys looked really sharp. This is only the second time in the last 10 years that they've started 2-0 on a season. And Dak and Zeke were just both on it in this game. And, they did give up 21 points on the defense, but the offense just played really well and counteracted the 21 points given up. And even 21 isn't that bad for a defense. That's about the most you'd want to give up. But um, overall, their defense was like bend but don't break. Colts versus Titans. Another game that I would call basically not that exciting or entertaining. You had Jacoby Brissett manning things for the Colts, and you had a Titans team that honestly just really seemed like it didn't care that much about winning either. This game felt a lot to me like the um, Carolina Tampa Bay game. Like, I guess one of these teams has to win. I don't really know what to think of the situation though. Like, I was disappointed in the Titans. I thought they had this game. I think that they really should have beaten the Colts. Like, what's Jacoby Brissett doing throwing 3 touchdown passes? He's supposed to be a backup. Why are you letting him do that with this super stout um, Titans defense? They only gave up 19 points, but like, come on, 3 touchdown passes by Brissett. That shouldn't be flying. Um, Other than that, I don't know. Marcus Mariota, it might be time to give up on that dude. I'm just not sure what to think. Seahawks Steelers. Seahawks won 28 to 26, which to me is actually way closer than it should have been, considering that Big Ben missed most of this game. Mason Rudolph did a good job in his absence, though. He threw 2 touchdown passes, both to Vance McDonald. Interestingly, um, honestly, this game, the thing that I am making note of is that the Seahawks, with a really good defense like they do have, why were they giving up so many touchdown passes to Mason Rudolph? The final score of this game should have been more like 28 to 14, not 28 to 26. So, um, the Seahawks did good. They won the game, which is what they needed to do on the road in Pittsburgh, but they honestly should have had an easier time based on the conditions of the game. Interestingly, Steelers are 0-2 for the first time since 2013. I believe they did make the playoffs that year, though. Next, Bills and Giants. The Bills won 28 to 14, and they're a lot more solid than I would have expected so far. I still don't think they're going to finish with a winning record or anything, but I think from what I've been hearing and what I've been seeing, they're a team that they may not be the most talented, but they're going to execute well, and that can bring you a long ways and do a lot for you. Besides that, the Giants are still a disappointment. Saquon Barkley is really the only thing on this team that I like. Golden Tate's a good player, but um, they just have a few isolated good players, but there's nothing really like there's no unit on this team that I like. I'm not excited about the offensive line. I'm not excited about the defensive line. I'm not excited about the secondary. Um, Besides Saquon and Golden Tate, there's really nothing to be excited about on this team unless you're a big Sterling Shepard fan, I guess. Next, Patriots Dolphins 43-0. This was just a drubbing. Um, the Pats just continued what the Ravens had started, and I think it's a little ridiculous for people to say that they could go 16-0 based on them playing a depleted Steelers team and a Dolphins team that's doing the equivalent of tanking in the NFL. So I think that may be a little bit of an overreaction to say, oh, 16-0. Like, let's wait till they play some of the tougher teams on their schedule. Like, I believe they play the Chargers and the Chiefs this year. So let's like wait and see how those games go before we all say 16-0 right away. But the Dolphins played exactly how you'd expect when you're tanking. They played awful, and the Patriots played exactly how you'd expect when you have the winningest Super Bowl quarterback of all time under center, with arguably the best receiver in the game in Antonio Brown, along with they just have the best offense and defense in football, so it's going to be hard to deal with them on any given week. Texans Jaguars. This was a slugfest for sure. 13-12 was the final score. Gardner Minshew is actually playing okay for the Jaguars. I didn't expect him to play as well as he has, but he's showing some promise. As far as the Texans, this is they actually, despite winning this game, they actually played worse than they did against the Saints when they lost Week 1 against the Saints. But um, they won, and that's really all that counts, I guess. But this team needs to get it together, and they cannot have games like this being this close, because this should have been a relatively easy win for them, in all honesty, but it wasn't for some reason. Next, Vikings Packers. The Packers won 21-16. Packers were up 21-0, and the Vikings made a bit of a comeback, but Kirk Cousins on 1st and goal late in the fourth quarter, instead of just throwing the ball away or taking a sack and kicking a field goal, Kirk Cousins decided to throw a ball into double coverage in the end zone. And honestly, I was watching the game live because I watch Vikings games because I'm from Minnesota. This was a ball that was placed just awfully. I don't mean to be harsh on the guy, but he's on the run making the throw. He's not a mobile quarterback. He doesn't do well outside the pocket. So right there, that's warning sign 1. And warning sign 2 is, I believe it was Diggs. Diggs was double covered in the end zone. What are you doing throwing it to him? Throw it 3 yards to the right, and he can throw it away. Regardless, the Packers held on and won. The Packers had their offense working pretty well in this game. You can see the pieces starting to come together. They might be better than I predicted, I'll admit. I predicted 7-9. But they beat the 2 toughest teams in their division so far, so it remains to be seen how good they could be. But definitely a good outing for them, and the Vikings were playing well after the first quarter, but still a disappointment that they lost. Next game, Chargers-Lions. The Lions won 13-10. This is a game where the Chargers have to look at themselves and say, man, Derwin James is missing time. Melvin Gordon's doing his holdout. These are the types of games that we win if these guys are here. And I don't mean to say that they're necessarily going to win this game if Melvin Gordon and Derwin James are there, but I think that I'm pretty confident saying that they would. Like, those two are arguably their like first best player and like third best player on this team, if you want to be generous to Melvin Gordon and say he's their third best player. They're at least 2 of their most important players, and I think Phillip Rivers doesn't throw the late interception. Maybe if he can trust his running game a little bit more. The defense is even more locked down if they have Derwin James on the field. Maybe Kenny Golladay doesn't go for 8 receptions and 117 yards. That's just me, though. Definitely a disappointment for the Chargers, and a game that if everyone were there, they probably would have won. Bengals 49ers 41-17. I was quite impressed by the 49ers offense. It's the first time they've thrown 500 plus, or they've had 500 plus yards of offense since 2012. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't know what to think of him yet on this season. He's still such an unproven commodity, but so far he's doing what he needs to. This team's 2-0, and they look really impressive on the offensive side of the ball. And on defense, the Bengals aren't going to light the world on fire with their offense, but they did hold them to 17, so that's good. Ravens-Cardinals, 23-17. The Ravens won. Honestly, not as convincing a win as it should have been. I feel like there was a pretty good shot the Cardinals could have won this game, and that's a little bit concerning if you're a Ravens fan, that this is a team that should be looking to win their division. And, the Cardinals are honestly going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and you're letting them hang around like that. It might be more of a compliment to Kyler Murray than a detraction from the Ravens. I'm not really sure yet. Um, we'll have to see more from Kyler Murray to know if it was him playing well or the Ravens playing badly. Because with a rookie, you're not really sure until you see more of a sample size. Okay, next we have Chiefs Raiders, and the Raiders were up 10-0 in this game, and then the Chiefs scored 4 touchdowns from 3 passing TDs from Mahomes in the second quarter, and then they didn't score the rest of the game. This just proves how much more dominant the Chiefs are than a lot of the other teams in the league, that they can take 3 quarters off and win the game by 18 points just in 1 quarter. Rams Saints next. This game, it's really hard to draw any huge conclusions. The Rams played well, I suppose, but like the Saints were really taken aback by not having Breeze on the team for the week, and Bridgewater I don't think was really ready to come in the game, despite NFL players supposedly always being ready, sort of thing. And the Rams did what they needed to do. They had to win this game with Breeze out, and they did. But it was still concerning that this Rams offense, even without Breeze, with Kamara, with Michael Thomas, with the weapons that they have there, and Teddy Bridgewater, who's still a decent quarterback, it's concerning that they were only able to put up 9 points. Beyond that, Bears Broncos, exactly the kind of game that the Bears win, 16-14. And hey, the Bears got a kicker. He kicked the game-winning field goal as time was expiring, I think. And both teams essentially played exactly how I would expect, and this was honestly probably about the most predictable game this week. 16-14, Bears win. Eagles Falcons. We saw a Falcons team bounce back really well from the loss to Minnesota in week 1. They lost 28-12. This week they won 24-20. The offense got humming a little bit more. Julio is a monster. If you didn't see, he had like a 90-yard catch, and he now has the most receiving yards in Falcons history as a wide receiver, or any receiver, I should say. And I think this team has more life in it than people would have thought after the week 1 loss to Minnesota. And then lastly, you got Jets Browns, and with their top 2 quarterbacks on the Jets out, this turned out exactly how I'd expect. The Browns got a pretty easy game. They have everyone healthy. The Jets are on their 3rd string quarterback, who they never thought would see any significant time this season, and it was a blowout, 23-3. Now for the second part of this segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about 5 teams that I thought really impressed me this week, and 5 teams that I thought really disappointed me this week. And so without further ado, let's get into that part. So teams that impressed me this week. Number 1, the Patriots. Winning 43-0 is always impressive no matter the competition. This is still the National Football League. These are still professional players. So it's still impressive. But on offense, they just got weapons at every position. You got Tom Brady at running back. You got Sony Michel. You got James White as a great dual back with Sony Michel. You can kind of give Sony the I formation runs and the single back formation plays, where he's just gonna do like pretty standard running plays, but then when you're gonna do things from the shotgun, you can have James White in there sort of as a dual threat running back. Besides that, you've got tight end and Benjamin Watson, who's pretty good, above average definitely for his position, and then your wide receiving core is like the best in the NFL arguably. You got Josh Gordon, who's still playing at like an above average level as your 3rd option. You've got N'Keal Harry, is like your 4th option. You've got Cameron Meredith, who's still a quality NFL receiver, as your 5th option. And then, of course, what I think will become the new Randy Moss and Wes Welker, you've got Antonio Brown and Julian Edelman as your 1 and 2. So this offense has got it all. And defensively, best secondary in the NFL. The McCourty twins, Stephon Gilmore, Patrick Chung, and Duron Harmon as your backup safety. Love it. So they really impressed me winning 43-0, if you couldn't tell. And I gotta say, I hate the Patriots and just the dynasty sort of thing, and I wish somebody else would win for once, but this is like a really fun team in that they're just so dang good. And I hate it that I like this team a little bit, honestly. Number 2 team that impressed me, the 49ers. I did not expect them to win in the fashion that they did. I expected a game that was going to be like 20-17, and they really impressed me this week. That offense got it cooking. This team has some of the best running backs as like a unit out there. You got Matt Breida, who's kind of your slugging back, who can just kind of take it and if you need to punch it in the end zone, he's going to be their guy. And then Jerick McKinnon is out there. He's a really speedy dude and kind of like a slightly worse version of Tevin Coleman, who's also on this team, but he's injured right now, or he at least was last week. This next week, maybe he'll be a little healthier, but that trio is probably the best running backs committee in the NFL, I would say. I think that they should almost not exclusively, but they should really integrate a lot more dual back plays. Like you could have Coleman on one side and McKinnon on the other. They're both dual threat running backs, and you just would open up so many options for this team on offense. Let's see here. The third team that impressed me was the Chiefs. Essentially, as I already said in my review, being able to only play one quarter of a game on offense and win the game like handedly, that's really impressive. Mahomes continues to impress. He almost looks like the NFL is just like too easy for him. LaShawn McCoy's there. I'm happy about that. I like Shady. And yeah, this team was almost like on cruise control this week and just picked up an easy win without any struggle. And in a division game, which isn't always easy. Next team that impressed me was the Cowboys. I've never seen a 31-21 game seem so lopsided and so decided with also being like within 10 points. What I mean by this is like, yes, the Redskins only lost by 10 points, but at no point did I feel like they were going to win this game. I just knew that the Cowboys were going to win. They were dominant. Dak is playing wonderfully. Zeke is playing wonderfully, and the defense is playing well. Even giving up the 21 points, they're playing well. And the last team that impressed me was the Falcons. Not as flashy a wins as these other teams, but the Falcons showed some resolve, were able to play clutch, and were able to kind of take a punch in week one, get knocked down, and brush themselves off and get back up and showed some resiliency. So I really respect that. Okay, now to teams that disappointed me. Number one, the Chargers. You can't be losing games to the Lions. If you're the Chargers, who last year were 12-4, you gotta be, 12-4, I believe. You gotta be winning games against teams that went like 7-9 last year, like the Lions. And I know excuses, but you can't really have excuses when it's this lopsided of a matchup. You gotta win that game. Inexcusable. Number two, the Dolphins. Pretty obvious. They're going to get blown out nearly every week going forward, but 43-0 is miserable, and losing your first 2 weeks combined 102-10 is also miserable. And this team is just directionless and looks awful right now. Number three team that disappointed me, the Vikings. Most of this falls on the back of Kirk Cousins, but also it falls on the defense that in the first quarter they just let the Packers have their way with them. This defense could have locked down a little bit more in that first quarter, and yes, they did after the first quarter, but come on, guys, 21 points in the first quarter, get it together. You're supposed to be like a top 3 defense in the NFL. You paid Anthony Barr big bucks. You've got Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter, who are arguably like, you could argue are like the best defensive end tandem in the NFL, both Pro Bowlers, both All Pros. You've got Harrison Smith, who you could argue is the best safety in the NFL. You've got Xavier Rhodes, who's a Pro Bowler at his position. Come on, Eric Kendricks. What is this defense doing, giving up 21 points to a Packers offense that looked not that impressive week one, and besides a few good drives in week two, didn't look impressive honestly either. So yes, most of it comes on Kirk Cousins' interception, but I am a little disappointed in this defense, honestly. Okay, number 4, the Titans. What are you doing? You blow out the Browns week 1, and week 2 you lay an egg essentially against a Colts team that should be dead in the water without Andrew Luck. Pull it together. I am disappointed in this defense and in this offense. Just Marcus Mariota. Bench him or draw up some new schemes for him or something, because either he's much more limited than we ever thought, or this play scheme is just a lot worse than I realized. Lastly, the Panthers. What are you doing? Cam Newton, pull it together. I have always been a big fan of Cam Newton and defended him, but come on, Cam. Like, you're finally supposed to be healthy and playing well, and what are you doing here? And in his defense, He doesn't have a great receiving core. I don't know. People have said that this is one of his best receiving cores ever, but he's got only like DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, who I don't think either of those guys are all that great to be a number one threat. He does have McCaffrey, but this offense actually is pretty limited when I look at it outside of Cam and McCaffrey. So I don't blame him too much for that. You know, you got Greg Olsen, but what is he now, 100 years old? I don't know. He's still good. He's like Jason Witten, still good, but they just need more weapons on this offense. And the defense, it played well enough that they should have been able to win that game. And I got nothing against them. So that's my week 2 review, guys. I went through every game, gave a little synopsis of it, and then I talked about some of the teams that impressed me the most and some of the teams that disappointed me the most. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave your comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.